All right, it's showtime. Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Duran. I am the host of Changing the Game, brought to you by Shift Group. Shift Group helps athletes and veterans transition into sales roles. Today, I'm joined by Sarah Dominguez. She is an account executive at LinkedIn and a certified yoga instructor, and she's also been an expert for us here over at Shift Group. So I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yes. If anyone has any questions throughout the stream today, feel free to throw them in the chat. I will try to pay attention to them as we go today. But yeah, Sarah, please kick us off. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and your current role in sales. If you could just walk us through that.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to. So I'm an account executive with LinkedIn, working with our small search and staffing businesses. What that means is I just help our small recruiting firms get started and partner with LinkedIn. I've been here for about 2 years and got my start in IT back in 2017, working for a recruiting firm in tech. So I focus in cybersecurity and then went over to a cybersecurity AI firm for a couple years where I got my start in software, and then came over to LinkedIn, which LinkedIn's office was down the street from my very first office back in Chicago. And it's always been a place that I've set my sights on to work at. And opportunity came about in 2022 and I joined, and I'm going to plan to stay as long as they'll have me. So
I love that. Very cool. Love that you had the office down the street from your old office. So that's kind of a little transition.
It was across from the train station that I commuted into for a time too. So, and it was a natural transition from being in recruiting, and a lot of my old coworkers had gone over to LinkedIn. So it's always been, on my radar.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's kind of a natural transition for you for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what motivated your desire to start a career in sales in the first place.
Yeah. So I studied at DePaul. I studied political science, wanted to go to either law school or do federal law enforcement, largely from like family influence.
Very familiar with the law school route. Yeah.
Yes, yes, you are. I applied, I was in process with the DEA, and I was interning at a law firm in Chicago and realized I was only kind of halfway invested. And I was like, neither of these things you do if you're halfway in. So I pulled out my application from DEA, decided to pivot. I was working at a CrossFit gym of all places, made a lot of connections there, and somebody told me I'd be good at sales. So I think that's like how a lot of us get into sales, honestly. But actually a friend of my brother's from the Marine Corps Naval Academy, his wife worked at this tech recruiting company that I started at, Tech Systems, everybody can see on my profile. And she exposed me to it. Shout out Caroline, thank you. And referred me. And that was back in 2017. Since then, getting exposure to IT, it's a field I never thought that I would work in. I've, learned more about the industry, kind of have my sights set on what I wanted to do, and was able to turn it into not just like a whim of a job, but a career. And I'm really happy that it happened this way.
Yeah. I love that career path for you. Really cool that you went and tried the law route and the federal law enforcement route. Like, very cool that you were able to have that opportunity and decide like, hey, maybe this isn't for me. I had the unique experience of going to law school and not being all in, and going part-time my second semester, and it just made it harder for me. So I just think that's really cool that you were able to say, hey, I need to be all in whatever career path I choose, and put my energy into that. So that is really cool. I'd love for you to explain your transition from cybersecurity and how that is different from what you're doing now at LinkedIn, and whether that was a difficult transition or just how you transitioned through that.
Yeah, that's great. Great question. It was difficult for me, to be honest. I was working with maybe like 3 to 6 opportunities at a time back at Darktrace, and working with CIOs and CISOs, information security officers, and working with procurement and small teams, like at every level of the business. And obviously we're talking about sales today. 3 to 6 deals would make up my quota, which is Not
Wow.
a lot. The sales cycle was much longer, but the TCV, the contract values were much larger. And
Mhm.
so when I came over to LinkedIn, I had to sort of build my stamina and learn how to juggle multiple opportunities that some move faster than others, but a lot of them moved quick. I could close a deal in a day at LinkedIn. I could also take a month, which is very rare. But the sales cycle was shortened quite a bit. The product's also quite different. It was nice that in my recruiting experience, I'd used it before. So that was definitely a level up, but they still developed the product so much since 2017 when I started using it. So that was definitely something that I had to adjust to and sort of, again, like build up my stamina or my endurance to like work with all of these different companies at the same time and remember what's going on and who's who and this and that. That was
Yeah.
definitely an adjustment for me between going from cybersecurity to recruiting. And then the buyer persona was a lot different too. CIOs, CISOs, sometimes even CEOs of a company I was working with back at Darktrace, they have, are looking at things from a different lens. I was working with larger companies there as well. At
Yeah.
LinkedIn now, I'm on our small business team. So a lot of my clients are one-person shops where they are the recruiter, they're the salesperson, they're the marketing team, they're finance, they're everything. So that was, quite different too, like talking to the person who has all of the stake in the game and not just, multiple stakeholders from different parts of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. On the topic of personas too, they're so different. Um, what helped you understand what each buyer was looking for? Like, was there something that helped you, or was it just training from each company that really helped you put yourself in their shoes?
Back at Darktrace or with both
I guess
Darktrace?
with either.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of training, a lot of learning from my peers. Both of these companies that I was at, all three, Tech, Darktrace, and here at LinkedIn, have really awesome training. So it was a lot of that, learning from my peers and trial and error, right? Like messing up, which is going to happen, getting burned, and then learning from your mistakes. But now that I work with recruiting businesses and owners of those firms, the more you talk to them, the more you understand, where they're coming from, what they care about. And everybody's going to be different too. You can
Yeah,
generalize, but usually you find that there's some subtle differences from owner to owner.
totally.
Mhm.
Totally. And just on the topic of like really caring about your customers, um, I guess, are there any other specific lessons or things that you found to be beneficial in your career?
Yeah. So I kind of alluded to it, but my brother's in the military, sister-in-law, dad, military law enforcement is in my family. And obviously because of that, a lot of close family friends. And my mom has even had a career serving people. She's a realtor, and that's like how she gets her fix on helping others. So that's always been a big thing for me. I think that's what drove my initial interest in federal law enforcement or, pursuing a JD. Obviously, like we established, I decided that wasn't for me, but in my career, something
Okay.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Something I know about myself is that I need to have meaning in my work. I've learned in the last few years that it doesn't all have to come from my job, but what
Yeah,
I find helpful is getting in the boat with my clients, caring, right? I don't think that you can teach that. I genuinely want to help them. I tell them a lot too. I understand that my clients are not big corporations. They are small. And we could take Shift, for example. Shift is actually on the larger end of the businesses that I support. Most
oh,
of them
wow,
are
really?
smaller. Yeah. So I like to tell them, like, I want to help you leverage the LinkedIn universe with an understanding that you are not a big corporation. I want to help you take advantage of everything that LinkedIn can offer so that you can reach your goals, whatever it is. Some people want to stay small and lean. Some people want to grow, but they're business owners. So they have all of their eggs in their basket, right? So I
Mhm.
find that that's really helpful for me. And it's an easy thing for me to do.
Yeah, that really hit home for me when you had said that you put a lot of value in kind of what your career does for you, or maybe putting a lot of worth, sometimes your self-worth in your
Hmm.
career. That's something that I've struggled with too.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know how you find fulfillment outside of your career as well?
Yeah. Wow. Family is huge for me. I live in San Diego now. I've mentioned Chicago a couple times, but I've since moved. My family is very important to me. I'm actually staying with my sister-in-law right now because she just had a baby, and my brother's away with some military stuff. She's in the Marine Corps as well. But I, without hesitation, picked up and came here for 2 months to be with them and help her out.
Amazing.
I also have a dog that I'm obsessed with. I have a 2-year-old German Shepherd that is like my sidekick. So she takes up a lot of my time. I think it was sometime last year where I was having a bit of a career existential crisis, to be completely honest, because I think I was placing too much stock in getting all of that value satisfaction from my career. And at LinkedIn, some of my teammates, so we sponsor an orphanage in East Africa. And I went on this trip with them, raised money. We raised thousands of dollars to help them with some specific projects that they had at the orphanage. And going there after a really tough fiscal year, the first week of July was like the best thing I could have asked for. Like total perspective shift, reminder of what's important. And it's something that I will always support, and they'll always sort of be that reminder of, what really matters.
Yeah.
And I think that experience coupled with, now, decent length career in sales sort of just got my mind right, allows me to show up to work and give it my all, but not judge myself too much for what goes on all of my Zoom calls.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, congratulations, first time auntie. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Such a fun role to be an aunt. I just became an aunt last year myself, and it's just
you got it. It's so fun. Yeah.
You get all the best parts, right? Like you get the babies when they're so fun, and then it's always the joke, right? You can hand them back to mom and dad when they're you're up.
Yeah, actually, it's fun because they're moving to San Diego in July, so they're only going to be 45 minutes away, which I now might end up moving in with them because I think I'm going to have separation anxiety from her.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And I see Corey Lynn in the chat said San Diego with hands up. She's a San Diego native herself. So
hello.
One of our fellows here at Shift Group. So
oh my gosh, awesome.
Corey Lynn, she's awesome. You guys should probably
connect. Yeah, that would be great. Send me a connection.
Yeah, she's great. So I want to kind of dig further into your trip to the orphanage and kind of stepping outside yourself, going through that tough fiscal year. What learnings did you have coming out of that, and how did you persevere through that tough time?
Yeah. So some background, I started with LinkedIn April of 22. Our fiscal year runs from July through the end of June. So had my first year, was rocky. I had some, peaks and valleys. Learned that I was going to miss my Q4 quota by 3% while I was sitting in the airport in Nairobi, of all places, on my layover.
Yeah.
So that was a huge bummer. But what was waiting for me was like the ultimate, again, like just perspective, right? All of these children, the mother of the orphanage being like the best person that I've probably ever met in my life, all these kids that have very little material things, but have everything in the world, that are the happiest children, the most loving and supportive and responsible. That was like the best place to be, to kind of deal with missing my quota, right? It made it just sound so inconsequential.
Yeah.
Came back to being on the bottom of the stack rank, which is not fun. And then I was like a little bit away from probably being put on a performance improvement plan. At LinkedIn, they're genuinely to right the ship and to help you get it together and then hit your quota and stay.
Right. Like a real plan for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I've though been at other companies and I've know people in sales. Like I know what a PIP usually means. And I, with that very recent perspective and experience being with the kids in Tanzania and with, just experiencing what I did, kind of had to do some soul searching, right? I'm like, am I placing too much emphasis in my career to find my happiness or my self-worth. Like, what is it? Do I need to do more things like this? Do I need to focus more on family, friends, community life? You name it. When I came back, or when I got the news, talking with, my leaders and people here at LinkedIn, I had, weekly goals. I had metrics to hit. They were evaluated and checked in on every week. I am super proud to say now, like in the beginning, I was the last one. I was at the bottom. And I finished the quarter as the number one AE in my group. And that was like awesome. Right. And I think I talked to, sorry.
No, sorry. I was just saying, yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it was really cool to do it, right? To go from the bottom to the top, to show myself that I can do it. And I think during that time too, I just changed my perspective a lot. And I think it was coupled with that professional challenge, the time in Tanzania, all of the things that the conversations that I'd had with my leaders and my family and friends too. And now, it's been how many months, like 6 to 9 months since then. And I'm in a good spot, and I, feel really confident in my role and in myself too. And I don't place too much in, my career, my numbers. And I think that's helped, sort of loosening the grip on the bat, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's amazing that you were able to find that perspective. What a tough time to go through, but also the perspective shift. That's really cool. Kind of on overcoming and having that support that you needed from LinkedIn and being able to set those measurable goals to help you overcome. Is there any way that you would encourage someone who is maybe looking for more support or looking for just that help to overcome maybe a situation? What advice would you give them?
In role, are you asking?
Yeah, like if they're looking for support or maybe just a mentor or someone to help them along in their career, how would you encourage them to do that?
Yeah. Probably 2 places, right? Personal life and professional. I would say get your priorities right, get your mind right, understand why you do what you're doing, right? I was like, what am I doing in sales, selling software, right? And then I had to think about it, right? What does my software help? Yes, it is software, but it is helping small businesses, right? So understanding why you are in the position you are, and then the reasons why you are outside of work.
Yeah.
I have, certain financial, personal goals as well. And once I kind of figured out what my why was, it's commonly said, but I think it's so powerful. You can kind of figure out why you show up to work every day, right? And that's your driving force. I think sometimes I lose sight of that personally. I'm sure others might relate. And I think that constant reminder is going to be helpful. On the professional side, if you need more support in your role, you have to go seek it. Everybody's sort of caught up in their own day-to-day. There are a ton of selfless leaders that have helped and people who want to help, but at the end of the day, they don't know unless you ask. Our VP of sales in my org said on a panel once that the answer is always no to a question that you do not ask. So I credit Jenny for that one, but I think about it all the time, because if I don't ask my manager, my mentor who sits in San Francisco, or Jenny, our VP, or my director for help and in which areas, I'm not going to get it. So I think that would be my long-winded advice.
No, I love that. That's amazing. Like just being empowered to ask. And I just, when I was growing up, I think my mom always told me, like, the worst thing anyone's ever going to say to you is no. Like the worst thing they'll say is no. And it's like, okay, thank you. Next, like go on to the next one and see, because I think people generally want to be helpful. They want to give value to others, especially when it comes to careers. And maybe they don't answer your first request if you're reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, but maybe they do it again maybe they do the second time. So I don't know, just having
if it's trouble in role too, like if you're having a hard time figuring out a certain process, or if you can't overcome the same objection, like find somebody on your team that you vibe with that does well and ask them what they do. Everybody has different styles, right? On my team of 8 reps, I think everybody's style is unique, but there's something to be taken from everybody, I think, and kind of make that your own.
Yes. And like what works for someone might feel totally inauthentic to you.
Yeah.
I remember that in my sales career too, just like someone else's style. I was like, whoa, that is so uncomfortable for me, but hey, it works for you. Amazing.
Yes.
So I think that you can take something from everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious, I want to dive into your yoga background a little bit, both of us being certified yoga instructors and having that in common. I would just love to know how your yoga training or instructing has influenced your approach to sales and leadership.
Yeah. I think I've been doing yoga for like, how old am I? Like 10 years, maybe. I started in college. So I went to DePaul. There was a Core Power on campus. And I actually started going when my brother was on his first deployment. I worked at a studio, not as an instructor, but just worked at the studio and was having a really hard time with him being away and didn't realize that until I, couldn't sleep very well and just had a lot of anxiety around him being gone. And then yoga, I found, was the only place that I could fall asleep. And it was at the end in Savasana, I was able to like take a little nap just out of like, I was spent, like exhausted physically and emotionally too.
Yeah.
So I had always wanted to get my certification, but was a little bit scared to take the leap. At first it was like, I'm in college, I don't have a job. And then when I graduated, it was like, I don't have a job, I need to find a job. And then finally I was like, I called myself out and I did it in 2017 with the intention just to share what I had found, right? And that piece and that sort of like sense of control physically and mentally too, that has been like what has helped me so much and why I keep going back to it. In terms of like getting my cert, being in front of, a room full of people looking at me for guidance, I think it's helped with my confidence in front of people, leading people. The idea that sometimes less is more used to be really wordy. And now I realize, just short and sweet, direct communication is going to get your point across. I think all of that has helped me personally and professionally, right? And I think for obvious reasons for both.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, you have to be so direct and concise in class. Otherwise, your students are going to look at you like, what am I supposed to be doing here? How is this supposed to feel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I full-heartedly agree with that. And I think just yoga makes you step outside yourself in another way too, outside of your comfort zone and that inner peace.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you just reminded me too. Sales can be a roller coaster, right? You deal with different personalities, with different styles. Something can happen in a deal that's totally out of your control, right? And something I sort of talk about in my yoga class is that practicing that control of our breath, our bodies, what we do with our limbs, helps us sort of learn how to control ourselves. And it's a great reminder that we cannot control others. And I think having that sort of like sound foundation to not get rocked when certain things happen. I got advice from somebody at Tech Systems years ago to not, get too high on the highs and not get too low on the lows.
Mm-hmm.
And when you kind of find that nice hum, that's when I think you can find less anxiety, more peace in the job, because it can be a lot. We're not, a typical 9 to 5, get your stuff done kind of career. But I think having that yoga practice and just like sort of having control over emotions and things like that have helped sort of navigate the waves here.
Yeah. And just being able to meet yourself where you are and sit with your thoughts or sit with the present moment and how you're feeling. I have a lot of friends, colleagues who say, I can't do yoga. I can't calm my mind down. I can't, it's, I'm thinking too much. And sometimes I say to people, well, maybe that's a sign that you should do it more. If you're unable to calm your mind down. And I think everyone struggles with that. Even the instructors in class, like being able to sit with your thoughts, it's a practice.
Yeah.
So I like to encourage anyone who says, I can't do yoga, I think too much. It's like, that means let's get to our mat.
I think I could speak for both of us too. And I could say like, we're not perfect either, but it's just like the constant showing back up, right? I always ask my yoga students, like, why are you here? Why do you practice? Why do you come back? Right? We set intentions at the beginning of class, right? And I like to let them set their intentions for themselves. And something I ask a lot is like, why do you practice? Why do you come back? And it's always that thing that comes back, right? That makes you come back.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. We could talk about yoga all day too. I'm sure some of our listeners, maybe if you've never tried yoga, to any listeners definitely try. But in the last couple of minutes here, one thing you mentioned on our first call together was that when you feel like you're changing people's perceived thoughts about you as a salesperson, or like how, yeah, their perception of you with each interaction. I would just love to know how you developed this mindset and what helped you kind of overcome that.
Yeah. Okay. I think so. Background, I'm Italian and Mexican. My parents, or, my dad's Mexican, mom's Italian, grandparents were born in Mexico. And I think when, growing up, I always joke I was raised by Marines, cops, and an Italian mom. And I spent a lot of time with my dad, who's in law enforcement and was in the military, and his friends, and sort of learned to be a chameleon in a way, but also to not really be intimidated by those kinds of environments. I remember growing up riding my bike with my brother and dad to his police station to work out at like the age of 8 or 9, right?
Wow.
And I got used to being like in a weight room with boys, right? With men, and like not being intimidated. I think now the reason that sort of translates into work is because I can sort of be myself in most environments, right? I'm not shy if I get on a group of, or if I get on a call with a group of guys, right? And when I met with Shift too, that's a great example. It was a bunch of guys. You didn't join the team yet. And I was like, all right, let's go. Like, let's show them how to partner with LinkedIn. I'm going to be the best person that they could have gotten to partner with us, right? And really show them the way. So I think it comes a little bit from that. And I think it's fun too. I mean, I love sort of proving people wrong, going above and beyond expectations. I love that moment when you realize that you have too. I think, it's in the small moments, right? But I think that's kind of like a fun challenge for me.
Yeah, I think the connotation or the phrase like having a chip on your shoulder can be perceived negatively sometimes. But I think sometimes in situations like this, it really serves salespeople, like not coming from ego, but just like, I want to show you like this is the best scenario for you, and I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to, whatever perception you had of me, like I'm going to wipe that clean, and you're going to have a great experience. So
yeah, I had when I was with Tech Systems, it was probably like 2019. We did a team building 2-day sort of like exercise retreat in Chicago. And one of the things we talked about was onboarding new employees and joining our team. And they posed a question. They said, what do they get when they get you? And I've sort of applied that to every scenario, like professionally, like, what do yoga students get when they're in my class? What do my new team members get when they join my team? And then what do my clients get when I'm randomly assigned to their account, right? Yeah. And I like to go above and beyond. I like to leave them with a good taste in their mouth. I think sometimes buying software can be overwhelming. Coming to LinkedIn could be overwhelming. Trying to navigate our site just to get in contact with us can maybe pose a challenge. I like to sort of be that really strong place to land and then guide them to wherever they need to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And you work with so many amazing female sales leaders at LinkedIn. You had mentioned on our first call. I just want to know how having strong female leaders has impacted your development.
Yeah. So I didn't know that stat that you share in the beginning of the episode, because I think LinkedIn is so good at finding that balance. My team is split 50-50 male, female. I think having those strong examples, 2 of the 3 managers in my org are VP of sales, female. They have families, they have lives, and they're not only in the role, they crush it, right? Like that in and of itself has been an example to show that there are different paths to take within, LinkedIn, personally, professionally. And to see them again, like not only sit at the table, but like run it and run it well, or just perform really well, is such a strong message. And that like really sticks with me. My family friend who got me into Tech Systems too, I don't even know her title now. Sorry, Caroline, but she's crushing it, right? She was like a director, a lead, every title and accolade you can have, right? And I think just seeing those people not only in the role, but doing well, and then still having a life and being a human being, I think is just a really strong example to show everybody that we can do it too.
Yes, I love that. Amazing. Last question for you, Sarah. What advice would you offer to women or anyone who is considering a career in sales?
Yeah. I think I would tell them to, ask around, right? Network, see if you like what, you hear, if you could see yourself doing this job or having a career in this world, and then do it. I think what I see a lot is analysis paralysis. What I have a lot sometimes is analysis paralysis. I see my male partners just sort of go after things and execute. And I see myself sometimes taking a long time to figure out my process and sort of taking a long time to take off. I think that could put me at a disadvantage sometimes. So I guess it's the same advice that I would tell myself would be to just do it, get it done, like worry about, perfecting things later, to sort of just go for it.
Yes, I love it. Thank you, Sarah. Launch fast, adjust later.
Yeah. Yeah. Improvise. I think, is it the Marine Corps thing? Improvise, adapt, overcome. Can you tell my dad was in the Marine Corps?
I love it.
Yes.
That is awesome advice. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your time today. Can anyone watching the episode, can they send you a connect on LinkedIn?
Yeah, please do.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.
Bye.